The most frustrating things that I found in discipleship or dealing with people is trying to get them to understand the promises that God has for them. What is it that God has in store for them? Two verses from the Bible that really paint this properly. It's Jeremiah 21 verse 11, where God basically speaking to the children of Israel before they go to Babylon to become slaves for another 70 years. And he leaves this message for them. It's like on a voicemail, so that when they come back after all that they've gone through, they'll actually get this message from God. You know what I'm saying? He says to them, he says, I know the plans that I have for you, and the plans that I have for you, it's to prosper you. It's not to bring you harm, it's to bring you prosperity. And the second verse is that is John 10:10, where Jesus speaking to his disciple, he says to them, the devil comes to kill, steal, and destroy, but I have come so that you can have life and have it in abundance. And I think the grasp of it, or what I'll want them to understand, or I want my guys to understand, is that those promises are not promises of heaven. They are not talking about heaven. When God is speaking to the children of Israel, He's not speaking to them about heaven. He's speaking to them about here on earth, meaning that the prosperity promise that God has for us is for here on earth. Now, this is not prosperity gospel. The reason why it's not, because obviously God is talking to them there. The message is living for them there is before they go to Babylon, where, of course, they are going to be tortured. They are going to go through hardship. It's going to be hard time for them. But through all that hard time that they are going through, they need to understand that there is a promise at the end of it. There's a hope at the end of this. And what God has in store for us after we have gone through all this cleansing, that's what basically it is, the cleansing. When we get to the other side, God has a lot more in store for us than what we can imagine or what we can think for. Obviously, because in discipleship, yes, it's demanding, there's a lot of requirements, there's a lot of energy. There's energy that has to go into it. There's a lot of sacrifice that has to go into it. But all that feels like, it does not feel like sacrifice. It does not feel like requirement. It doesn't feel like all those things when we understand that God has more in store for us here on earth. That means the promise is not for there. The promise is for now. The promise is for here. The promise is while we are walking this earth. And He has plans to prosper us here. It's very difficult to get that across to them. And it gets frustrating sometimes. Because sometimes people complain about things basically because they don't understand that God has more in store for them. But what happens when someone actually understands it, when they get that revelation, when they have that Bob moment where it makes sense to them, it's like the equation fits. What happens? Actually, what you end up seeing is guys who are soaring, guys who you don't have to follow up with to get to sell, guys that you don't have to follow up with to get to church or to get to encounter or to bring people to encounter, guys that they are just doing things by themselves, they are running by themselves because they understand this is not hard work, this is not scrutiny, this is not, you get me, it's none of those hardship. This is not like going to the gym and lifting 150 kilos off the floor on your 2 feet. It's nothing like that. It's actually light. Do you understand? Why? Because we are prospering. You actually start to prosper as soon as you get to understand that promise. So get to understand that promise.